Star Wars is in such a strange place right now. The other day, this article came out on Variety talking about how Disney are basically changing their approach to filmmaking based on the generation or the demographic they're trying to appeal to. Leadership at Walt Disney Studios has been pressing Hollywood creatives in recent months, multiple sources tell Variety, for movies that will bring young men back to the brand in a meaningful way. Young men defined here as ages 13 to 28, aka Gen Z. And before we go on, I'd love if you could tell me what generation or your age in the comments, so maybe we can understand if what they're saying here makes sense or if it's complete nonsense.
Do it.
But according to this article, Disney has been seeking new IP and pitches. And part of the reason they're looking for new IP, I think, is because Star Wars and Marvel are struggling and they're trying to plan for the future. And I think it's great they're trying to do new things, but does this really solve the issue? How about just make some cool stuff in Star Wars?
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Today I'm also going to talk about some of the other recent Star Wars news I haven't discussed yet, such as the Obi-Wan news, the Temuera Morrison and Boba Fett news, there's stuff about a few Star Wars actors, and even Star Wars Outlaws. So, hey everyone, it's Andrew. So the article explains that Disney's sweet spot and where they're making most of their money at the moment is in millennials, in Gen Y. And all of the nostalgia-based content based on franchises and IPs that were created for millennials 20 to 30 years ago is still where they're making most of their money. For example, in recent years, The Lion King, 101 Dalmatians, and Lilo and Stitch were basically the movies created for 90s and 2000s kids, and all of them have had recent reboots which have been extremely financially successful. And they're doing the same thing, I think, with Star Wars. For example, bringing back characters like Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Hello there.
Including characters like these in recent Star Wars projects is an attempt from Disney to keep making money from millennials. Basically, characters that older generations grew up with are being brought back for the sake of nostalgia, to get millennials and Gen Y, Gen X even, to go back to the cinemas, go back, watch the TV shows, and allow Disney to profit off that nostalgia bait. But it seems like at the moment they're scrambling to create something new to bring in more of the Gen Z, which the article argues are lonely, gaming-obsessed group who were hampered in their formative years by COVID-19 lockdowns. That's quite a blanket statement to describe an entire generation. I'm not sure that's true. Wasn't the whole point of the sequel franchise to capture this generation, to bring Star Wars to a new generation of moviegoers? Which, in a way, it did, but clearly it hasn't had the lasting effect they hoped it would. Because it seems like right now, with reports like this, Disney are scrambling to create new projects to appeal to that younger audience. The article uses the Minecraft movie as an example of appealing to that generation, which is a film that appealed to the younger generations, having grown up with Minecraft. Cost $150 million to make and made Warner Brothers nearly $1 billion at the box office, despite its low rating of 5.6 on IMDb.
Chicken jockey.
But essentially, Disney's crowd, Disney's audience, Disney fans are getting older. And yes, even though younger generations are enjoying Disney IP and projects, there's probably less of them doing so than there were, say, 10, 20 years ago. So basically, they're just trying to future-proof what they're doing. They're trying to make sure that in 10, 20 years' time, they'll still be able to appeal to that younger audience. And they're trying to do that, apparently, by getting all these writers together, getting all these creatives, and looking for new ideas to make, versus just rehashing old films. It seems they can no longer just rely on Marvel and Star Wars for success, as they have for, I guess, the past 15 years. CEO Bob Iger said in a recent earnings call that Disney won't necessarily favor existing IP over original material, and the priority is just to put out great movies. At the end of the day, though, this is all fluff and talk until we actually see something change. It seems like they are, in a way, trying to reboot Star Wars with what's happening next year and the years to follow, with Star Wars returning to the cinema for the first time since 2019. The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to be the first attempt at that, coming out in May next year, and I'm assuming Disney are estimating or hoping that The Mandalorian and Grogu will end up being $1 billion film, that it'll make them a lot of money. But is it already too late? Do people actually care enough to see a character we've already seen in 3 seasons of a TV show on the big screen now? I still think it feels like a bit of a desperate move for them to put Mando and Grogu on the big screen. Once again, they're just going back to rely on these big characters that have already made them a lot of money and sold them a lot of toys. The Mandalorian series is what launched to Disney Plus. It was the first show on the platform platform. And the reason I'm sure so many people subscribe to Disney Plus, and part of the reason Disney Plus has gone downhill since then and seen a loss in subscribers over and over again, is because season 3 wasn't that great, wasn't that memorable. And maybe people are kind of just getting over it as well. It honestly feels like we're at a bit of a crossroads with Disney projects and Disney's direction for Star Wars from Marvel. It feels like we're at somewhat of a turning point. Like from here, things are certainly going to change, hopefully for the better. But I honestly think in the movie space, things have kind of been this way since 2019, since the release of Endgame, since the release of The Rise of Skywalker. I think most Marvel fans would agree Marvel has been on the downturn since then, and nothing has really lived up to the standard of the decade or so of films that were created in the Marvel saga. And I think a lot of you probably know how I feel about The Rise of Skywalker.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
But 2019 was also the year Disney Plus launched, and for a while it was a huge success, and we thought that the future of Star Wars, and partly of Marvel as well, was in TV series. It's funny how now, again, they're kind of shifting their approach though. They're seemingly making less TV series and are returning to cinemas instead, going for the big blockbuster. And speaking of blockbusters, Matt Smith recently joined the cast of Star Wars Starfighter, the Ryan Gosling Star Wars film, which is set to start shooting soon and is releasing in 2027 at this point. And this, I think, is another prime example of where we're headed. They're basically getting these giant A-list actors like Ryan Gosling and also massive blockbuster director like Sean Levy to make something in the Star Wars universe, to, I guess, reboot the franchise yet again. Sean Levy's most recent film, Deadpool and Wolverine, made Disney over $1.3 billion. And I don't really see Star Wars Starfighter getting close to that. A lot of that will, I think, depend on the marketing. But I just really hope they're going to do something original and memorable, as they're seemingly planning to do. I mean, they're also making the Rey films, continuing Rey's journey following the events of The Rise of Skywalker. So I guess in a way with that project, they're appealing to Gen Z because they're bringing back that same audience that maybe fell in love with the sequels, that maybe sees those films as their Star Wars films. Oscar Isaac also recently expressed his willingness to return to Star Wars, so surely the sequel actors will end up making cameos or having some kind of role in the Rey films, considering it's continuing that story. But completely contradictory to everything I've said today, a few weeks ago, Temuera Morrison once again came out and said that he's not working on any Star Wars projects at the moment. And it's basically called on fans to tell Disney, to tell Lucasfilm to put him in Star Wars again. And with Ahsoka Season 2 currently being filmed, and also Dave Filoni's film in the works somewhere behind the scenes, it seems strange to me that he's not involved in any way. Maybe it's just not the right time yet, or maybe he's lying to us all. But Temuera Morrison needs to be in more Star Wars. If he never ends up playing Captain Rex, I think that will be a huge missed opportunity. Surely they have plans for this at some point. I mean, he's already played 200,000 units. Why not play 1 million more well on the way?
I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the universe.
A few weeks ago, there was a huge kerfuffle about Ewan McGregor being in Ahsoka Season 2, which can confirm he is not, unless he's lying to us again as well. But he was asked what his favorite part of Star Wars is, and he said he likes watching his wife, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who's of course playing Hera Syndulla in Ahsoka. He said, I thought it was brilliantly done, it was so funny. He's had video calls with her and she's green, and somehow this was taken out of context to say that Ewan McGregor is in Ahsoka Season 2 playing Obi-Wan. He totally could be in a flashback and he could be lying to us all, but as far as we know, he's not in Season 2, just to confirm. And another thing I just wanted to mention, about a month or so ago, there was also news about Star Wars Outlaws 2, the sequel to Star Wars Outlaws, being cancelled by Ubisoft because the first game didn't meet sales expectations. I don't think this is really any surprise, but Ubisoft's CEO basically said that he thinks the Star Wars brand is to blame as well. He said the game suffered from a number of items. First, it suffered from the fact it was released at a time when the brand that it belonged to was in a bit of choppy waters, which I think is fair. I guess this was around the Acolyte time, Acolyte getting cancelled. And then also the game was kind of broken and wasn't necessarily the Star Wars game or experience or story that everyone wanted. So all those things created the perfect storm, and therefore we're not getting Star Wars Outlaws 2. But with all that said, what are your thoughts on what Disney are now planning to do? Do you think they have the right approach? None of this really matters, like I said, until they actually release something and we see what they've been working on, until we see the projects and I guess they put their money where their mouth is. Don't forget to come follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Discord, TikTok, posting more Star Wars stuff on those platforms. Watch this video for more Star Wars, let me know your thoughts, and thanks for watching this. Always remember,
stay bombastic.